Welcome to episode 27 of Lost in Translation with Bobby Martin, a right on the verge of Christmas edition.
Merry Christmas.
We are joined today with Wilmington's own and Division I, University of North Carolina athlete, gymnast, Cory Shinohara. Cory, thank you for joining us.
Yes, of course. Hi, everyone.
Thanks for being here, Cory.
Yeah, no problem.
So Cory, there's so much to ask here, and because we just had a kid named Tyler Roberts. He's out of college now, but was Division I athlete at Merrimack College, football player. That's a lower level, significantly in the grand scheme of Division I than University of North Carolina. Went to NFL training camp this summer. He's playing in the XFL, which is a minor league. But the journey from Wilmington to being a Division I athlete, it's such a small town, and it's worlds away. Just what would you say, you can go in any direction about that journey from growing up in Wilmington to University of North Carolina, one of the most prestigious academic and athletic schools in the country?
I would definitely thank a lot of people here, even my teachers, for accommodating to my schedule and stuff, because I was always so busy in high school, doing school and gymnastics, but gymnastics did come first for a while. I would go to school for 3 hours a day because I would be practicing in the morning and then I would practice at night. So I didn't get to be able to have a regular high school experience, but a lot of my teachers, I talked to them and they helped me out a lot. And a lot of my friends here, I grew up with them since I was in kindergarten, and they were my first friends from here because I moved from Japan. And ever since then, they've had my back, and they've always been supporting me, posting about me on Instagram, reposting my gymnastics. And it's just it's been awesome having such a great support system, because if I had to do it by myself, it wouldn't have worked. I really wouldn't have been able to do it. And coming from such a small town in Massachusetts that not a lot of people know about, I take pride in it, because people are where are you from? And I'm Wilmington, but I love that town, and they helped me so much to get to where I am. And just because you're from a small town, and it doesn't mean anything. You can still go so far in life, and you can go to these great colleges and be a D1 athlete or do whatever. So it's just all the people behind you that are there for you, and I think that's one of the most important things to have, and what I'm thankful for the most. So yeah.
Well, I am in the spirit of Christmas and gratitude. I want to thank you for being here, and after listening to you for those couple of seconds, I've got a new appreciation for anybody associated with the ACC.
Yes, go ACC.
Well, I don't know if I would go that far, Cory, because I'm a Big East guy, so but no problems today.
Bobby was he was at the height of that Big East. Were you recruited by any ACC schools?
Oh yeah. Yeah. North Carolina State, Georgia Tech.
Not NC State.
Virginia. Yeah, quite a few ACC schools.
Mm-hmm.
So Cory, you talked about the schedule, and you hear about how demanding gymnastics is, and it's very different from a lot of American sports. I feel the model's almost like how sports are in Europe or in Asia, where in Europe, whether it's soccer or basketball, and in Asia, whether it's basketball is a really big sport there, or in Japan, baseball, kids get into the talented athletes. It's academies, and you're training in the mornings, you're training at night. Your school kind of comes around that if you're kind of singled out as being gifted and talented early on. I know it's not quite the same here. It was more you guys pursuing it and finding that sort of system, but what was that experience like? How do you just hear about Americans that they get into a sport like gymnastics or some others where it's so consuming from such a young age that a lot of people get burnt out, or they don't have social lives. You mentioned a lot of to me before about a lot of people that you were kind of in your gymnastics, I don't know if it's called an academy or club with, were being homeschooled, and people can have very limited social lives or just get totally burnt out by the sport. How did you find that balance and when it's such a consuming sport?
That I would have to thank my parents for, because my mom always was even as a young age, she was you need to value yourself as a person before you value yourself as an athlete. And I was like 7 or something whenever they would say things like that. So I was like, okay, like I don't really care. But as you get older, and I was training about 30 hours a week, it started getting tiring. I had a lot of injuries. I've had like 4 surgeries, major ones. But being able to be grounded by my parents and be like, hey, like maybe you should go to the football game. Hey, like go hang out with your friends today. You can skip practice today. Like do this. A lot of parents are like on their children, like go to practice, go to their practice. They're at every game, like watching them like a hawk, like whatever. My parents are always like, just enjoy it, have fun. And I did, and that's why I ended up where I am. I feel like gymnastics is not the type of sport where you can be forced to do it, because you will break at the end and you will end up quitting, or you will hurt yourself at the gym mentally. Like it's not good for you. So my parents were always like, hey, just have fun. Like you do bad at a meet. Doesn't matter, we're going to get dinner after. It doesn't matter, like just go have fun. And so I really thank them for that. And I think also like, again, my friends, like they were always there. And like if I had a bad practice, like I would be able to go hang out with my friends. I wasn't just isolated in the gym all the time. Even my teammates, like having them too, like we all went through the same thing. We were all very similar. So like we all understood, but like having my friends outside of the gymnastics team, like from Wilmington, like it helped me a lot. So I would say them and my parents like kept me grounded all the time. Yeah.
I'm interested to hear your perspective on how you came back from injury. I remember pre-production, you were saying that you tore your Achilles.
Yes. So I've actually
an ACL.
Yeah, I've done 1 Achilles, 2 ACLs, broken elbow, broken back, broken foot. Wow. So we've been through a lot. But coming back again, my coaches were very like, don't listen to the doctor, come. If I'm in a boot, they're like, take your boot off, you can still do stuff. But my mom was always like, no, like if you do that, you are out of practice. Like she was very like, take your time. You do not want this to hurt you for the rest of your life. And I was like, yes, you're right. But you have to be patient when it comes to injuries. Your body will heal on its own, but if you're pushing it, it's not going to heal. So I just had to learn to be really patient. And during the times I got injured, I enjoyed a lot of my social life, actually, because I didn't have to go to practice as much. So I started hanging out with my friends more. I got to go to more football games, got to go to like prom, like stuff like that, because I was injured. So I did get actually like kind of lucky with injuries when it came to that part. But just being patient is my biggest like advice, because a lot of people get frustrated and then they think, oh my gosh, my career's over, I'm never going to get back. But like, if you're just patient and you do your rehab and you mentally prepare for everything that you're going to be able to do, like you'll be fine. Like I've gone through 2 ACLs and Achilles. That's 3 years combined of injury, and like I'm still doing fine. So,
I thought that you had, and I won't remember the exact quote, but it's something that Bobby and I have talked about so much about, like when you tell parents, or Bobby's the first person who gave me this quote, but I realized it's how my dad was with me my whole career. My dad had been Division I athlete, had been a pro for a bit, and he introduced me to the sports, and he was very real with me about like, look, dude, I'm 6'8", you're 5'8", there's going to be, most people out there are bigger than you, you have to, if you want to make it, you have to put in the work, but it's up to you. Mm-hmm. Like he was real with me about what I needed to do. But he wasn't like, we're going to be out in the field or we're going to be in the gym at like 5 a.m. It was like, what do you want to do with this? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Bobby gave me the quote that like, you can't want it more than they do. Mm-hmm. Parents can't want it more than their kids. Coaches can't want it more than their players and be successful in the end. Mm-hmm. And you hear about in all different sports, but I feel like gymnastics is one of those sports that, because it's not like mainstream in the media except for once every 4 years, basically, when the Olympics come around, that like, it's one of those sports that like a lot of parents who get into it are like really, 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 really into it. And you hear like horror stories about parents just pushing their kids like crazy. And so it really, you talking about your parents, where it was like, it seems like they introduced you to this sport, but like they weren't like, our kid's going to be a gymnast from day one. And I feel like that's really great to hear, and it's something that I wish more parents of athletes kind of really got, that like introduce your kids to the sport, be real with them about what it takes if you're seeing a passion or a talent. But if you're the one who's trying to like push them to put in the work, like you said, in the end, like you're going to get burnt out. So like I just want to give you a chance to expand a little bit more on the role of your parents and in your career and just their mindset?
Yeah, actually, my parents wanted me to quit when I got injured for the first time. My mom was like, I can't. My mom watched me tear my ACL at a competition my sophomore year, so she doesn't even watch me anymore. She like watches her fingers in front of her eyes. They did want me to quit because they were like, no, like it's just hurting you, whatever. I'm the one who was always like, I want to do it. I want to do it. My practices were 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. every night, and obviously, my parents did not want to drive me, but I was always the one who was like, please, like, come on, you know. They were never the ones who were like, let's go, let's go. I was always the one like, come on, let's go. But my parents just really believed in, like, if you're not going to want it, like, we're not going to make you do it because you're just not going to be happy. And my mom always says that, too, like, even about a job. Like, if you're forced to go work, why are you going to do that job? Like, you're just not going to be happy, you know? So she's always like, just happiness comes first. Like, if you like it, do it. If you don't like it, don't do it. And, like, that mindset absolutely helped me because I would go to practice, like, and I would put my all into it, and I would love it. I love gymnastics, I do. And a lot of gymnasts I don't think actually love it, and it's kind of sad because you know that, like, they were forced to be put into it, and then maybe their parents are watching them at practice. There were people like that at my gym, and it's a little sad, but I think that I got the very lucky end of the stick where my parents were just very proud of anything. If I went to a meet and did horrible, they would always give me a hug, and then they'd be like, okay, what do you want to eat? Like, that was always the first thing. It was never like, this wasn't right. You didn't do this right. You didn't do this right. Like, and if they did, like, they would never do that. Like, I've never experienced that ever in my life. But I would hear parents from, like, other teams be like, hey, you fell on this because of this. You did this because of this. And I would just look at them and be like, dude, like, gymnastics is really hard. Like, no one can have a say unless you're the one doing it, especially when you're, like, on a 4-inch piece of wood, 3 feet in the air, 4 feet in the air. Like, you don't have a say. So my mom and dad were just very supportive throughout it all. And they were like, just be happy, and we're proud of you. And I was like, okay. And then it got me here, so yes.
Now, I remember in college watching the gymnasts. They were over on the side, and I'm watching the balance beam, and I'm watching them on the, I'm not sure what you call it when you're grabbing the bar and flipping around, and I forgot which one it is. Not
the
pole
bars.
vault.
It's just the bars, yeah.
Okay. So they're on the bars, and I'm watching them slip off. I'm watching them do so many incredible things, and I'm thinking to myself, there is no way in the world I would ever try something like that, right? And it takes so much dedication to be able to do that. And then I realized how absolutely strong they were.
Oh, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I said, oh my goodness. Just, we're watching them, I guess, I think it's called an iron cross or something like that, or, when you're doing the rings.
Yeah.
So tell me, what is the team dynamic? I mean, do your teammates cheer you on because they're really trying to perform better than you are? Mm-hmm. So is there, during your practices, is there a competition during practice?
So gymnastics, I'll explain very quick. So 6 compete, 5 scores count. So that is how 4 events, 6 go up, 5 count. And we're all mature enough, at least at UNC, we're all mature enough to understand that everyone's going for the top 6, everybody, obviously. And if you're that 7, 8, 9, whatever, you're pushing those top 6 also to be their best, because if they're not doing great, the 7th will take the 6th spot. Mm-hmm. So, like, everyone is pushing everyone to become better. And at the end of the day, at UNC Gymnastics, like, it's a huge team sport. If we want to win ACCs, if we want to go to nationals, if we want to win, we all got to be pushing each other. And, like, I think everyone is just mature enough on my team to understand that. And if you don't, then, like, our coach will have a problem with that. Our team will have a problem with it. Like, there's no bad blood. Like, oh, I hope she falls so, like, I get a spot. Like, I feel like at other schools that may happen, that definitely happened probably in club. Like, oh, if she falls, then, like, my score will be better, like, whatever. But in college, it's like, if she falls, then, like, the next person better be good enough to, like, be able to count for that fall. And if they're not, then, like, the 7th person next time will be able to push them to be better. So, like, everyone is just pushing everyone to become better and better. And, like, we all understand that. So there's, like, no negative energy in there. We're always cheering each other on. Gymnastics is very loud. I don't know if anyone's ever been to a meet, but, like, college gymnastics, you got to be cheering all the time because it really helps with the adrenaline. It really helps know that people are there to support you, because when you're up there by yourself, it's really difficult. Other teams, like soccer, lacrosse, it's a team sport. Like, you're always in a group. There's always, if you make a mistake, it might not be, you can't notice as well. When you're up there by yourself and you fall, everybody's watching you. Everybody knows you're by yourself on the spotlight. So, like, having people be there cheering for you, it actually does help a lot. And people don't really know that if they're not competing. But with the team atmosphere, like we all understand that like we all want to be top 6, but like if you're not there, like you keep working because like you working is pushing that top 6 and it's making them nervous and it's making them do better. So like it's making the whole team better. Yeah.
You know, Bobby, so Cory mentioned like practicing 30 hours a week when she was in high school. So like, you know, when you get to college, okay, or the pros, okay. But like for me, I don't think in any of the sports I did during the school year when you're in school, I was ever 30 hours a week dedicated to my craft. Do you think before you got to college you were ever putting in 30 hours a week, like year round? I'm not talking about summers when you're out of school, but like during the high school year or let alone like middle school, putting in 30 hours a week in hoops?
So high school, I would say I was close, you know, because you have to go out and you have to shoot on your own. And, you know, you go and you play pickup. So that's after school if you're not in season, and you're probably in there for 3 to 4 hours, you know, that evening.
Yeah.
You know, probably 3 hours, not 4, but it was definitely 3 hours. So, I mean, that's
3 times 7 is 21.
Yeah, that's 21. So, you know, plus your hours that you got to be at practice anyway. So, yeah, I would say it was close, but it was nowhere near the intensity
Yeah.
which, you know, gymnasts have to perform. They're a different breed.
Yeah, and Cory, you know, how did you make it through elementary, middle, and high school? I know that you mentioned a lot of the high-level gymnasts are homeschooled, and it's an abridged schedule for you. One, how did your family and you like approach the school district to make it work, and like what did you have to do to make it work and pass and all that sort of stuff? Like, and it must have been exhausting.
Luckily it had so much energy at that time. Like I don't know how, but I remember we had a conversation with my principal and with the guidance counselor that was mine. And we just kind of sat down and we're like, hey, like she's not going to be in school for a majority of the time because she is training for something bigger. This is when I was training for the Japanese national team. So unfortunately, school was just not first at that time. Usually school is always first for me, but at the moment it was not. And they were very nice about it. They were like, oh, yeah, like as long as she gets her stuff done, like I never fell behind. I would ask for my assignments like a week in advance, so I'd do it all on the weekend. It was more like a time management thing. Like I really had to have self-discipline for that. And I thank my parents for that, for teaching me that, because if you're not disciplined by yourself, like if you're not doing it for you, then like you're not gonna be able to do it, because I literally would have to ask for my homework assignments like a week in advance. I would stay after school with some teachers. I'm not great at math, so I would have to go in extra for math because I was not doing great in the classes. But I would always try my best to like get everything done on time, because training, you can't think about anything at training while you're training because you will get hurt. So like I couldn't be stressed about school, and so my teachers understood that, and they were like very nice about it. They're like, here's your homework a week in advance, get it in whenever you can. And I'd be like, oh, okay, great. And I was never the type of person to slack and not do it. Like I always did it. I always got it done. And it helped me once I got to college because it's pretty much the same thing.
I just can't get over that. Like being able to get all that together and the early morning practices in high school. Like I know that there are other athletes who do it. Like I've done early morning lifts and stuff, but like I can't. I lived like a 12-minute walk from my high school in Cambridge, and there were years where I was tardy like 90 out of 162 days still. Like that's where I was at in high school. So I can't imagine that kind of dedication to everything. You know, you mentioned training for the Japanese national team, and I wanted to ask you about that experience. You know, what was your involvement at that level? And how did that go? I know that you were born in Japan. I know your dad is Japanese. You said your mom is Chinese. But you grow up in America, you know, so for all intents and purposes, you were 3 or 4, you said, you know, so like that's basically as far back as your memory goes. You can remember living here. How did that come about, and what was that experience like for you?
It was an awesome, eye-opening experience. I gained so many perspectives there because I lived in Japan for 7 weeks with my mom, but a majority of the time I was by myself, and I got to learn some Japanese. I speak Chinese, but I don't speak Japanese, so I got to learn some stuff. I got to learn more about my own culture. That's a reason why I did want to go, is that from Wilmington, like being from Massachusetts, like I wasn't very, like, experience when it came to like knowing about my culture. Like I didn't know much about Japan or whatever, and my parents were like, maybe you should like go to Asia or something. And I was like, okay, like Japan is one of the places I definitely want to try. And their gymnastics team is good, and the Olympics were in Tokyo, so I was like, why not? So we decided in the summer. I went for 7 weeks, and then I made a lot of friends there. The team it wasn't big. It was a pretty small team. It was like 7 or 8 people actually, and the culture is so different there because they do not even care about school, which was very interesting. Like they just trained all day, didn't go to school, which was something that I didn't agree with. I didn't really love that. So that's why I decided to not really go back after a while. I also did tear my ACL the first time, so then I ended up not going back until my junior year, or like the end of my junior year. But their culture was very different, and it made me realize that I was actually very lucky here to be able to choose that gymnastics and school. Like they had no choice. They really just had gymnastics, and I was like, I'm really lucky to get an education with my gymnastics because especially UNC, I was already committed to UNC at this point. I could not be doing bad in school. That school is huge in academics, like very like big. So I was like, I got to keep my grades up. And so then school went back to the top of my list for first because I started not falling behind, but it started getting more difficult. But being in Japan, like it was just awesome being there for 7 weeks and just learning about my culture, being able to do everything with my team, learning the language, eating the food, like everything. It was just a very cool experience for me.
So I'm interested to know. So your dad is Japanese?
Yes.
Your mom is Chinese?
Yes.
And you grew up in America?
Yeah.
So I'm just going to call you Skittles.
Okay.
Because there is so much going on there. Could you please tell me the cultural challenges that you may have had when you were young? Because, you know, Japanese, Chinese, and then growing up here, what were you going through?
I was going to ask the same thing. You know, in Wilmington is such a white suburban town.
Right.
You know, and even for me as just like a white dude, I grew up in Cambridge, and it was like a different world from Wilmington. It was my high school. My graduating class was bigger than all of Wilmington High School now. My high school was majority minority, like the minority groups made up of, if you combine them all, a bigger population than white kids at the high school. Like, and I wonder, and every kid it seems like that I talk to, who doesn't fit the typical demographic in Wilmington, it seems like their experiences are all different, all across the spectrum of positive, negative. So what was that like? Your parents are both immigrants here. You grow up here, so you know you kind of feel, you know, you said that, you know, English is the language you kind of speak, and Chinese, but what was your experiences like in Wilmington as a minority, as an Asian, as a child of immigrants?
So my mom grew up here. She moved here when she was young. I don't really know. She lived in Tewksbury, so not far. But her experiences and my experiences were just so different. Again, my parents, they were always just like, be proud of who you are, be proud of your culture, everything. And so I was, and I think I had a very positive experience here. Like, there was nothing, I never felt out of place ever. My friends, like, treated me the same as everyone. Like, I felt like a very normal person here, which I thank Wilmington for that, too. Never felt out of place. But I am very proud of being Japanese Chinese. I know a lot about my culture now, and, like, when we, you know, Chinese New Year, stuff like that, like we come together as a family, and like I like to teach people about it too, because I think our culture is very interesting, especially Japan. It's growing because a lot of people are starting to watch anime, and a lot of people are into stuff like that, and I become very proud because I'm like, hey, like that's my culture, like that's me. So I think
I'm a serious Dragon Ball Z fan.
Yes, yes, because I know I've met a lot of anime lovers, like even just Avatar, like The Last Airbender, like that. It's all Japan. So, and people, you know, love ramen, sushi, all stuff like that. And I'm like, that's Japan, like that's my culture. So I'm very proud of it, and I never felt out of place here. I had a very positive experience in Wilmington.
So while you were growing up, and I'm guessing that there are cultural differences between the Japanese culture and the Chinese culture. Were you always aware of that? Like, would you approach your dad a certain way or approach your mom a certain way, or, you know, how did that dynamic work?
It's very interesting. In Asia, like usually your parents are like authority figures, more like you can't talk to them like a friend. It's like a very respect, like you got to respect them. I obviously very much respect my parents, but we are like best friends. Like I can talk to my mom about anything, talk to my dad about anything. I just went to Mexico with my mom like last week, like. And how they raised me is just very different from the usual Asian family. I won't lie. Like, usually it's very strict, and you have to, like, the parents force a lot of things, like schoolwork, and when it comes to sports, that too. My parents are just very laid back, and it's because my mom, I think, kind of had parents like that growing up here, because she grew up in Tewksbury, and she was one of the only Asians there, and there was a lot of, like, racism and stuff when she went to high school, but she was like, how I was raised, like, that's not really, she loves her parents, obviously, but she's like, it's very different from how I raised you and your brother, so yeah.
You know, speaking of Japan, I mean, I'm like, that's a weird transition because you were talking about your mom who's trying, but like it's in my mind from a little while back about your time in Japan. I had this question in my brain. You know, we talked off camera, and that your kind of time to compete for the Japanese national team was pretty finite because of their citizenship requirements. And can you explain that to me? And like, your goal, it seems like, was to make the Olympics, and injuries, it seems like, really prevented that from happening, and then you're up against the clock for either giving up your American citizenship or your Japanese citizenship. And can you take me through just that process, and then the feelings of, like, when injury, like, the Olympics is something that we talk about. 99.9% of kids that are athletes don't get to play Division I sports. I mean, it's got to be 99.99999999999 do not get to be an Olympic athlete. So to get that close to something that it's only once every 4 years, the window for a gymnast is really finite anyways. Yeah. And then your citizenship window, you know, basically, just take me through that process and the feelings of when you realize that injuries basically were going to cost you that.
So when it comes to gymnastics, there's two routes. There's the college route, and then there's elite. And elite is like when you're going to try to go to the Olympics. That route is extremely intense. A lot of people do not go to school. A lot of people, it's just gymnastics. The extreme difficult level too. Like, it's like a lot of people get hurt at that level, and you're training by yourself with your coach. It's just, you really have to be motivated and dedicated to do that if you're going to do it. So I decided I would try, but I would try for Japan. And so when I tore my ACL the first time, that was after my first time in Japan. I was planning on going back like that, I don't even know, April, and I got hurt in February. So, like, it was very devastating. But it taught me a lot. My injury did teach me a lot, and I looked at it at a whole different view, because I was like, you know what, like, I'll get stronger, and I'll be ready next year. I'll be more mature. And so I tried again. I did go back to Japan. And then I did great. I competed again, like, my junior year after I got injured. But it was more like I didn't want to put myself through all of that. Like, it just, like, wasn't, the Olympics wasn't quite, like, not worth it, but I didn't want to train by myself all the time, give up my social life, give up maybe part of college just for that. Like, I personally didn't want to do that. And there are people who did, and I'm like, that is awesome. That is great for you. I'm not the type of person that I was like, maybe not. So I decided to take a step back and just focus on the college route, because I was very worn out at that point. I was scared I was going to burn out. And then I had a full ride to UNC, and I was like, I'm not about to go and not be able to do anything because my whole body is hurting all the time. So, like, I really had to, like, think about that with my parents and be like, is it worth it right now? Is your body going to be okay? And, like, I had to take a step back and be like, no, I don't think my body will be okay if I continue doing this. So I took a step back, started doing college. And then the citizenship thing, Japan makes you choose Japanese or just Japanese, or, like, you have to choose whatever other citizenship you are if you are. So I obviously chose American citizenship. So the only way I would have been able to compete is if I was a Japanese citizen. That didn't really get, like, my planning didn't, like, get affected because of that, like, at all. It was mostly, like, injury in my body, but, like, that is, like, a small part. So now I am an American citizen because I had to choose. But yeah.
Wow.
So you've had some other injuries. I mean, I understand that is it ACL twice, Achilles once, and then you said you broke your back.
Yeah.
That sounds horrifying.
Yeah, that was
I've
bad.
dealt with Achilles. I've torn my Achilles. I've torn both my ACL.
Oh.
Can't say that I've broken my back. Like that sounds like a horrific injury.
That's such a great point, because following up with what Sam said, you've been through all these injuries, and, you know, previously you said that you learned a lot. It sounds like you've learned a lot more about yourself than anything else. You know, I love the story about the gymnastics, but what did you learn about yourself during each of those injury periods?
I learned that gymnastics wasn't my whole life. There was a period of time where I thought, like, oh my gosh, I put a lot of pressure on myself. I was like, if I don't do good, if I don't do good in college, whatever, like, my life's just not going to be great. I'm going to have low quality of life. Like, I don't know why I thought that. But after my first ACL, I couldn't do gymnastics for, like, 8 months. And all I did was, like, think about my life outside of gymnastics. And I was like, my mom was like, hey, this is not going to be part of your life forever. You cannot go professional after you graduate college. Like, this is my last year doing gymnastics as a senior at UNC. So she was like, think about, like, you know, you're only a sophomore, but think about maybe what you want to do in the future. Or think about how you can help other people, things like that. And that really helped me, like, think about who I am as a person instead of, like, just an athlete. Because for so long, I only saw myself as an athlete. Like, when I got hurt, I was just upset because I can't do gymnastics. And I was like, people are going to be disappointed in me because I can't perform as well as I could before. But, like, I've learned, like, that is just not everything. And UNC really values, like, you are a person before you are an athlete. And I think that's, like, so important for all athletes to know because we really get caught up in that mindset that, like, our sport is everything. And it's just, like, it's actually such a small part of your life. Like, people don't understand that. So I just hope people do.
Do you feel like when that pressure came off, it sounds like after kind of your own personal evolution during injury, that you then were placing less pressure on yourself afterwards when you realized, hey, there's more to me than just being a gymnast. Do you feel like you got better as a gymnast once that pressure was off? It's interesting to me. I had things happen in my personal life where sports were everything to me. I lost my dad. I lost my best friend. And suddenly sports weren't. And I had the opportunity to play professionally, but my heart just wasn't in anymore. But the interesting thing is once my heart wasn't in anymore and I wasn't putting as much pressure on myself, suddenly I was, like, hitting the ball like I never had before in my life. And it was like, because there's not that internalized pressure. And for me, you know, it wasn't a great route to get to that of, like, okay, now I've lost the passion for the sport, but now, like, hey, I'm playing well. But for you, do you feel like when you had that realization that there's more to you than being a gymnast, did it change your what kind of a gymnast you were at all?
I absolutely think it did because, again, like, I wasn't going – there were times where I would, like, dread going to a meet because I'd be like, if I do bad today, like, everyone's going to be mad at me. Like, I'm going to be mad at myself. I'm not going to be able to sleep for, like, a week because if I had a bad meet, like, there were times where I wouldn't be able to sleep because I would just be picturing myself, like, falling, like, over and over and being, how could I have fixed that? How could I have fixed that? So it consumed me a lot. Once I learned how to just, like, be like, hey, it happened. There's nothing you can do. You just do better at the next one. Like, and if you don't, do better at the next one. Like, you know, I started to develop a mindset where I was like, I'm just very proud of where I am. And I think that's one of the only things that matters is that, like, I'm proud of myself. My parents are proud of me. Like, that's it. Because I was like, I've been through so many injuries. I've been through so much. And, like, at the end of the day, like, I'm still here doing my things. I'm still a gymnast. Like, I didn't quit or anything. So, like, I think that, like, just being proud of myself really helped because it took a long time for me to actually admit that I was, like, proud of myself. Because, like, I don't think I was for a while because, like, I just had a period of time where, like, nothing was good enough. I was like, I could do better. I definitely could do better. And it was kind of like a miserable time. Like, I was like, what am I doing? And then I got injured, and then I got back from my injury, and that's when I was like, wait, I just went through one of, like, the most difficult injuries an athlete can have, and, like, I'm doing totally fine. So, like, as long as you're proud of yourself and, like, you know that you tried your best, like, I think that's literally all that matters when it comes to sports.
You know, your sport is so demanding, and you know, you have to be so precise. You know, the tenth of a point or whatever it is. It's, you know, basketball is nothing like that because if you're not good in one area, you can be good in another area and you can specialize. But in gymnastics, I can see why you were so hard on yourself because everything meant everything.
I would say, like, you have to be a perfectionist if you're a gymnast. Like, if your leg is bent, that's a 10th. And if your team loses by a 10th, it's because your leg was bent. Like, it's stuff like that. Like, again, in soccer and stuff, you know, if you mess up a little bit here, like, oh, someone can maybe help you out there. Or, like, you can go and play another position. I don't really know. But, like, in gymnastics, like, every little thing counts. If you wobble, that could be why your team lost. And, like, it's a lot of pressure. So you do have to understand that, like, it's okay if that happens. That was hard for me to understand in high school because you have to be perfect all the time and you're on the spotlight by yourself. So it's like...
It's so crazy if it was like, Bobby, like, you know, like, yeah, like you hit that 3-pointer, but it's actually only going to count for like 1.7 because your form just wasn't great.
That's exactly how it is. Yeah.
So you had the opportunity because COVID was crazy in college. And I mean, COVID was, that sounds very dismissive of what COVID was, so I want to retract that. Like, COVID was a society-changing event. But for colleges at the athletic level, it was really crazy because there were all of these additional years of eligibility, and I've seen there's some kid, he played at the University of Hartford at one point. I forget where he's playing now. He's like his 7th year as a
there's a lot of those. Yeah, there's a lot.
And you had the opportunity to come back for one more year, to come back next year. You've been through a lot of injuries. How did you make the decision that this was going to be it for you? And what do you feel like now, knowing that this is your last year?
So I had the choice to redshirt because my freshman year I didn't touch the mats at all because I tore my Achilles. Plus, since I'm the class of COVID, like we also get that year, I think. I decided that like gymnastics, I've been doing this for like 15, 16 years of my life, and I newly tore my ACL this year. It's for my body. I was like, I think I'm just going to be done. Like, I'm going to compete this season. I'm going to do good, and I'll be happy with that. Like, very happy with my career because I made it all the way to where I wanted to make it. And my dream was to compete for a D1 school. So I decided to not take the 5th year because I think I just want to continue with my life after gymnastics. I mean, there's always a risk for another injury, and I just really can't go through that again. I don't want to put my body through that. But again, like knowing my self-worth and knowing like there is way more to gymnastics. Like I want to go and get a job and meet new people and like travel and stuff like that. And I think like the ending of like my gymnastics story is like kind of this year. And like I'm very happy and proud of myself because I've come this far after so much has happened. So I'm okay with like not being able to 5th year. Yeah.
I feel like so many athletes, I know me, and I don't want to project me, but I just know from so many athletes that I was teammates, talked to, have so many regrets and things that like if I could do it all again, do it differently. Or so many athletes don't get to end their careers on their own terms. They're told essentially, your time playing the sport is over. It's an injury and it's over. Or you get to a point where you are cut and there is no, either you're cut at the college level, you're cut at the pro level, or whatever it may be. And so, to me, there's some power in that, and it's pretty cool to see an athlete that's like, I could keep going. I have the ability. My school's not kicking me out, but I'm just choosing to walk away. Do you feel like that you're walking away, when you look back on this, do you feel like that you'll look back positively? Do you feel like you have regret, like big regrets, or do you feel like it's a positive, you're going to look back on it just positively, like you went out on your own terms?
So after I tore my ACL in March, I had a team. I was actually going to quit, like right there. Like I was like, this is my 3rd major. Like I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. And my teammate came up to me, and she also has torn her ACL twice. So we know, and she knows. And she was like, do you want to walk away from gymnastics on your own terms, or do you want to walk away because of an injury and not on your own terms? And I was like, I thought about that for a while, and I was like, no, I actually do want to end on my own terms. I don't want it to be an injury that took me out. Like, I really don't want it to be, and I want it to be like I want to compete one more season, and I want to be happy with that season because it's my senior year. And she was like, then I think you should stay. I think you should try. And if, October, November comes, you can't do it, you really can't do it, then step away. That's fine. But she was like, I really think you're going to regret if you just quit now and then you think, what if I could have done it? Like, what if? So, like, that mindset really flipped for me. I talked to my coaches about it. They were very supportive. I was like, no, I'm going to come back because there was a point where I did want to quit. And now I'm so happy that I did because I'm almost back. I'm like about 85% back, and I should be competing in February. But then I'm happy now that, like, I can choose to be done. Like, I'm the one who's like, I could do another year if I wanted to, but like for my body and my mental health sake, like I think it's just best if I just don't. And I think it's important for athletes to understand that like it's your decision. Like if you want to do it, do it. If you don't. But like it's your decision ultimately at the end. And like whatever is best for you, you have to do what's best for you. Like you can't do what's best for other people or what you think your coach might want you to do. Like you got to do what you think that is best for you. And I learned that. So I'm really happy with my decision though. Yeah.
Well, Cory, it was an awesome interview. I got to be honest, you are one of the best camera presences that we've had, especially from like a current college, someone that's not like they were a pro or they're like a college coach where their like job is being, handling press conferences. Like it was a really, really awesome interview, and really, really appreciate you coming on with us. It's been really eye-opening to me to learn about, to get a better understanding of the journey of a gymnast, and just it really refreshing to hear about how your parents, their mindset with you and your mindset with your own kind of career. So can't thank you enough for coming on.
Yeah,
You
of
are
course.
an amazing person. We really appreciate you being here.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I enjoyed it.
Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.